We should be live. Hello, everyone.
Welcome back to History Yesterday podcast. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I hope everyone is okay. We're just gonna be waiting for a bit to see if more people are gonna come on the podcast. So today's theme we have prepared is war crimes of World War II. So we're gonna go through. We decided to go through a timeline based from the Eastern Front all the way up to Berlin. We're going to discuss the different war crimes that have been committed by the Axis as well as the Allies.
So, for the
So,
first topic, we're going to start with the Eastern Front, as Andrei said. Obviously, there was a lot of massacres that happened in the Eastern Front, but more specifically, the Germans destroyed a bunch of infrastructure that the Soviets set up to feed the population in the East, which was classed by many historians as a war crime. Do you want to expand on it, Andrei, or do you want me to go a bit more into it?
you can go a bit more.
Let me change the topic first because
Yes.
we need to. We're trying to be a bit better than last time because last time
No mistake.
Eastern
We
Front.
ask everyone to bear with us.
There we are. So we have Eastern Front war crimes. So the gist of the Eastern Front war crimes is that the Germans hated the Slav people. The whole purpose of the invasion of the East was that they wanted to gain something they named Lebensraum, which is the German word for living space. So they saw the eastern expanse that the Soviet Union controlled as not something that was owned by the people living in those places. They saw it as just land that the German people should colonize, because they saw the German people as something above every other race in Europe, except for those who were honorary Aryans, such as the Italian people and the Croatian people, who would later join up in arms with the Nazis. Um, they thought of everyone else living in Europe as somebody to either take advantage of or just exterminate, as they did with the Jews, with the Gypsies, with those that were mentally disabled, or those with disabilities. So during the campaign in the Eastern Front, to minimize the work that they had to do to exterminate the Slavic people, which they saw as inferior, they, as the Third Reich's army advanced into the Soviet heartland, they destroyed vital infrastructure, specifically grain silos and any type of food storage, which meant that the people living in the area, not only did they have to feed the incoming armies because their villages were taken over and they were forced to cooperate with Germans. So not only did they have to give their food to the Germans, but the little food that they would have left after the Germans left and moved on to advance into the Soviet heartland was destroyed, burnt, or just taken with the armies as they moved forward. Um,
Talking
yeah.
about that, talking about the destruction of food production lines, an important war crime that should be mentioned and has been mentioned in the trials is the siege of Leningrad. The siege of Leningrad, what they did is rather than fighting their way out, they literally surrounded, besieged the whole city, and left them to die of starvation and uh, extreme weather from the extreme weather for I think it was around 2 years, and to be more exact, if I remember, 870 days, 872 days, something like that. The problem was that people actually ended up which was mentioned in the trials, people actually ended up eating some of the family's corpses to actually even survive. It wasn't only the cold weather, it wasn't only that they didn't have any food, but also the unimaginable diseases that were going around due to the amount of corpses that were laying around, which were only placed near the industrial zone of the city that was left alone. Um,
Silent Control has just said something in the Twitch chat. He said Italy and Germany tried to convince people by every method that they can use. It consists of war crimes. They gathered people in Nazi death camps. After all, of course, the Holocaust is obviously a big part of the Nazi extermination of the innocent people of Europe. They created a really intricate system of transportation and camps, which first they designated as work camps and camps for those who they deemed to be enemies of the state. Quite similar to something that the Soviet Union did, but it's not as recognized, obviously, because they were one of the victors of World War II. Another reason for the phrase "the victors write history." But obviously, the Soviets didn't end up doing as much damage as the Nazis did, because the Nazis, just in terms of Jewish people, killed 6 million Jewish people, and then 5 million more of a combined group of people, such as gypsies, homosexuals, and other people that they deemed inferior, like I mentioned before. So that is of course a big part of what we deem to be Nazi war crimes, but a less often talked about um, topic is that they did, in their invasion of the Eastern Front, a large part of the casualties that they caused to the civilians, the, as part of the 26 million people killed, around 10 million of the Eastern Front casualties were just civilians that had just starved due to the Third Reich army rolling through the East and getting as much food, that the army taking as much food as they could and leaving nothing for the civilians, leaving them to starve.
Well, even the military was planned in such a way that obviously due to having such a small country, even if they after they have captured everything, they needed all the resources possible to blitzkrieg through the Soviet Union. And their plan was to actually use most of the resources, such as food and other supplies required by the military, to continue ongoing. So they weren't really planned to have, I don't know, uh, an exact amount of ration food for the military to ongo. So it was just them taking over whatever props were left, because, anyways, Barbarossa did start in September and then just destroying everything. And they knew that they don't even if Russia was to do a counterattack, they wouldn't have the time, neither the specific weather to rebuild and re-aggregate the crops.
We have some more messages in the Twitch chat. So Chippy says hello, hello there. And Silent Control says even Jehovah's Witnesses were sent to the camps. They thought that they were Jews. Even part of a society, even every part of society could be at these death camps. Yeah, the Germans in their final plan wanted to get rid of most people of Europe. It didn't really matter. At the time, they kind of made a compromise because they were like, oh, we can't just tell the whole of Europe that we're going to kill them. We got to ally with some of them first so they can help us conquer Europe. So that's why Italian people and other members of the Axis, like Japanese people and for half of the war, Romanian people, were considered honorary Aryans, which meant that they were exempt from the camps. But the final plan for the Germans was indeed to wipe out the entire population of Europe, and in the end, just have a ethno state of blue-eyed, blonde-haired people, the Aryan people, as they call them, that ruled over the whole of Europe.
It's interesting that, because although they say no Romanians have been sent to these death camps because there wasn't any reason of them and because they were allies, many Romanians from Bessarabia, which at the time, yes, it was controlled by the Soviet Union, but there were still Romanians living in them. So technically, there have been Romanians sent to death camps. And this is another misconception about the concentration camps, that they were built specifically for Jewish people, and that's wrong. There are many type of people that have been sent to concentration camps, from even German civilians that were political prisoners, to, like Calin mentioned, gypsies, people with disabilities, homosexuals, and they were all set in different groups. And even though they were set in different groups, don't think that they had privileges or better conditions. No, they were all treated the same.
Yeah, so that about wraps up the this general Nazi war crimes. I think the topic has been covered a lot, but shining a bit of light on the fact that they did treat the Slavic people with such animosity that such a topic isn't really covered, even though I guess it's because the Soviet Union did kind of get revenge on the Germans by pushing into the heartland of Germany, right to Berlin, which some people might deem as revenge, considering the Jewish people didn't get to beat back the Nazi army and then collect reparations from Germany directly. Although they did end up getting payment from West Germany, not West. Am I saying that right? Yeah,
Yeah.
West Germany for the creation of Israel, which obviously was built after the Second World War. We could move on to what happened in on the other side of the world in Nanking, which was another example of something less talked about, but it's probably the one of the biggest war crimes of the Second World War. Do you want to expand on the Eastern Front at all, Andrei, or do you want to move on?
We can move on, but I just wanted to mention that there's a comment on Twitch
Yeah.
from GP saying that 728,115 remaining people died in all concentration camps, which is true, but I was referring to non-Jewish Romanians. Obviously, all Jewish Romanians were sent to the concentration camps, but I was referring specifically to some that weren't Jewish.
Well,
So
not all Jewish Romanians were sent to the concentration camps, as we discovered
yeah,
last week from
yes,
the
yes, yes.
Romanian mayor, who ended up saving 20,000 Jews. Gypsies also, yeah, true. That probably made a much bigger proportion.
From
Yeah.
Because at the time, most of the gypsies were hiding, just living in Romania.
Okay, so we can talk about Nanjing after I change the topic and write down the time. We are at 22. So
For those that I just wanted to mention while I write down the time. For those that might miss the show or can't see the full show, the podcast, or can't see any podcasts in the future, we will post them on our YouTube channel as well as on the Facebook page, and we will cut them accordingly to the topics we are discussing.
I think the rape of Nanking might be a bit too forceful of a title, so I will name the topic appropriately, the Nanjing massacre.
We should put a disclaimer at the beginning.
Yeah, this show is obviously going to be about war crimes, and as such, it's not going to be the most family-friendly show. So, if you have somebody who is quite sensitive about this topic, I wouldn't suggest watching this podcast with them, or at least for this episode. Next episode that we have should be a bit more tame. In terms of the Nanjing massacre, there is that title is not centered. That's going to annoy me. OCD. But yeah, so the Nanjing massacre was part of the Japanese extermination of the Chinese people during their invasion of China during World War II. So I have some of the statistics here. Or the sources on this vary, obviously, because we have sources from both the Japanese military, from international sources, and from a varying amount of Chinese sources, from missionaries to Chinese government officials stationed in these regions at the time. But for the Nanjing massacre, there is an estimated 50,000 to 300,000 casualties, deaths, not casualties, due to a short period of it's less than a month from what I see here. It's from December 13th to January. So December 13th, 1937 to January 1938, during the Japanese occupation of Nanjing or Nanking, depending on the article that you read. During this period, due to Nanjing's tactical value for the Japanese, they tried to suppress the civilians of the cities as much as they could, and as such, they committed multiple war crimes. This includes, as the original title stated, raping some of the locals, indiscriminately killing civilians, taking food supplies. During their retreat from Nanjing, they poisoned all of the water sources, all of the wells, all of the water sources, and left decoy food, which was food in that was tainted with different kinds of poisons, which led a lot of the people, because the people of Nanjing were starved during the short Japanese occupation. After the Japanese left, many of those who were starved during this period flocked to this tainted food, and it resulted in many deaths due to the people having a weak immune system already from being starved for so long, and then eating this tainted food, which then led to their already weak immune system just collapsing. They from what we have written about and just the research before this article, there was a campaign from the Japanese from a specific Japanese unit, Unit 731, I think, if I remember correctly, which showed they trialed a type of chemical warfare where they used specific type of food that were left in, like, really similar to the topic that I was talking about, the tainted food. This is a subtopic of this. So they left tainted food, which was specifically infected with viral diseases. And as the people ate this food, this disease spread across. And at the same time, due to all of the water sources being poisoned by the Japanese after they left, they sent relief packages to the region, which included water, which was also infected with this viral disease. I'm going to try to find the name of it right now while Andrei expands on the topic a bit more. If you could.
So, yeah. Chippy says that is biological war.
It is biological warfare.
Yeah, it is. It was the start. It was considered a bit the start of biological warfare, modern biological warfare, because World War One was still seen as quite primitive with all the gases used. So on the topic, after I think I remember right. I've done some research as well. There was an island between China and Japan on that region, a small island where some of the Chinese people were left there, even though it was part of China. Japan did conquer it and took it as their own, and I think they were trialed a few years later because of that. And then when that island became Japanese land, they imprisoned them, so they never let them go. And I think it was until 1956 or something like that, quite a few years later, where even though most of the people on those islands have already built homes, because there was no point of going back to their lands, no families, nothing but after the war, and they were forced to actually be sent back to their country.
Another interesting, we have a comment on Twitch. Japan was an interesting ally of Germany. True, there was the Japanese government actually perpetrated a lot of the war crimes that that their troops started, because sometimes the Germany tried during the trials, a lot of Germans tried to use the defense that a lot of German generals tried to use the defense that they didn't have proper control over the troops and they didn't perpetrate the attacks themselves. But in Germany, it was actually the opposite. The government actually pushed for the Japanese the members of the Japanese army to be as brutal as they could towards the people of China. There was actually a publicized contest across of Japan between two generals who they were battling over who could decapitate 100 Chinese people first. And this was publicized across the whole of Japan through newspapers. I can bring up a news clipping of these two people actually.
Make sure the photos are.
Yeah, no, obviously them.
Friendly.
The photo.
We wanted to show more content. We wanted to show some images whilst we're discussing different topics, but due to the type of topic we're discussing today, we can't really show anything because we'll probably get our channel put down. We do have a few photos that we're going to prepare to show you later, just to get an idea of the content itself, but nothing bad, no corpses or anything like of that nature.
It doesn't allow me to upload it for some reason. This is strange. It has never done this before. Oh no! Wait, there we are. It works now. So I'm going to resize it so it looks a bit bigger. There we are. This is a news clipping from a Japanese newspaper. I'm going to try to get the date for it right now. It was in the 13th of December 1937, at the beginning of the Japanese occupation of Nanking, where these two generals, I think they were generals or lieutenants. No, second lieutenants. Sorry, that was my bad. These,
Definitely high rank because they have swords.
yeah, swords were seen as a sign of prestige in the Japanese army at the time, and it's still seen as a sign of prestige in Japan in general.
This
But
goes back for many years from the times
no,
where they had samurais and stuff.
yeah. So these two men, as seen on the screen, competed to see who could decapitate 100 Chinese civilians first. And I'm not sure if you want to talk about who won because I think that would be a bit morbid. But yeah, it shows that the Japanese government was a key part of this whole thing. It wasn't just the Japanese the people in the Japanese army who were doing this by themselves. This was encouraged by them. We have some more comments on Twitch. We say Sonic Control is saying if they succeed, they would try to penetrate America. Very true. There was plans to invade America. Very dangerous and fearless. Nanjing was one of the massacres. True. There was many other massacres, but Nanjing is the biggest of this war.
Yeah. I want to also to add to the first comment that Silent Control said that Japan was an interesting ally to the German army. I would say that Japan was a more indirect ally to the point where they didn't really strategically discuss in accordance to who's going to attack when or how. It just happened, and there were. I did some research on what actually the Germans were thinking of Japanese and Japan, Japanese people and Japan in general, and they saw them as not as high as them when it comes as a race, but a very intelligent race nonetheless. So that's why they actually wanted to keep them as allies. They saw them as very intelligent people with the high technology, with the high potential. Even though it was a small country, just like Germany at the time, they did really massive things and they expanded themselves throughout the Pacific. And I would also like to add that if maybe the coordinates between them during World War II would have been better, they would have orchestrated some, attacks, especially on Russia. Maybe there would have been different things. Maybe Russia would have been a different place now. But I think at the same time, if you look at where Russia is, and it's been said by Japan many times, and even at the end of the war, that they never wanted to interfere with Russia because they already had a war with Russia, and they saw the power that they have. So they never wanted to do that again. We have some more comments. One from Oscar. Nice. Natalie says you have a nice mustache.
Chippy says, yeah, go on, read Chippy's. I'm trying, the YouTube stream's having some problems. I'm trying to fix it.
Okay. But interestingly, why Hitler secretly met with a Japanese general during World War II? He did actually to discuss. They were trying to discuss the potential of actually attacking America, because in his plan, Hitler said that eventually he was going to take the whole of Europe and the whole of Russia, and after that, eventually was probably going to be Great Britain next, and then America. So they did have plans for the future, but they never went that far.
Yeah, YouTube is having some problems.
You having problems with YouTube?
Yeah. If any of our YouTube watchers are on here right now, please.
It's live right now.
Yeah. But it's 20 seconds behind, and there's two streams open for some reason. Our broadcasting services is.
I think it's 20 seconds behind on the Facebook.
That should be fine. I'll leave it as this now. Cheapy asks about why in secret.
It wasn't secret because obviously the allies didn't want to know about this because it would really change their plans. They wanted to know that they wanted to know themselves that this was an indirect alliance. It was just two countries fighting against the same enemy, but they weren't necessarily allies in their eyes.
Cheapy has subscribed to our YouTube channel. Thank you. But yeah, I think that's about it on that topic, because although it was very gruesome, we can't go really into detail on the exact minute details of what exactly happened. We might get banned, exactly. If you want to explore it more, there are several articles about the different war crimes that Japanese perpetrated in China on our Medium page, medium.com/history of yesterday. Little plug for our publication. But if you do want to explore that, we also post the friend links, which means that you can read them for free on our Facebook page, which this live is on right now. So if you want to explore further into this topic, just search on our Facebook page and you'll be able to read them for free. Chippy says, in my opinion, is that they wanted to split the world between them. And
No,
true.
because it would have. I would say it would have ended up Germany just taking over Japan as well.
Yeah, that is discussed. Well, is discussed. That's the premise of the TV show, The Man in the High Castle, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
And leave Italy out. Yeah, Italy was for most of the war just Germany's baby. It was more of a
puppet country.
It was although Mussolini was the creator of the fascist ideology, he really took a back seat considering.
I think we should leave whoever created the fascist
ideology. That's for another podcast.
Stream because it's a really big topic.
Yeah. We can move on to the next massacre, if that's all right with you. That would be the Sicily U.S. war crime. I'm just gonna note time when we ended the Nanking topic, so we can upload this on our YouTube channel. So now we often when we talk about war crimes in World War II, we think solely of the Axis, which means Germany, Holocaust, Japan with the Nanjing massacre. I'm gonna change the topic as well. U.S. war crimes in Sicily. Okay, so obviously these are much more well known than the crimes perpetrated by the Allies, and quite a big war crime. It's not as big as the Holocaust or this, of course, because the Allies were much more reserved, let's say, in the way that they treated the civilians, as they knew that if they had the civilians on their side, because they were liberating them after all, this whole process would have went much quicker. but because of the circumstances of the conflict, some mistakes obviously happened, and one of these mistakes, quite a big one, was during the invasion of Sicily in 1943, if I remember correctly. I'm just going to bring this up so I'm not, I don't say anything wrong. Yeah, so July 10th, 1943, the US, along with the British and other allies, invaded Sicily, which was going to be used as a beachhead for the invasion of Europe in the soft underbelly, as the Allies called it, which was Italy. During this invasion, the troops were stressed. They were pushed to the limit, which meant that a lot of the soldiers made many mistakes. And one of these mistakes was the mistakes perpetrated by I'm going to get his name right now, so I don't get anything wrong. I want this to be completely as accurate as possible. So there was a member of the U.S. Army Corps, which was invading Sicily, known as West, who was part of a group which was marching some prisoners of war to a camp where the Allies were holding the German prisoners of war, which were then sent abroad to be held in prisoner of war camps until the end of the war. In West's instance, he excuse me, my throat. So yeah, while he was marching them to the camp, he was due to the stress and other factors, and due to the fact that the prisoners of war were trying to escape, he got fed up, as it was explained, and took one of his colleagues, Thompson's machine gun, and sprayed 36 of them down, just on the street. Most of them were prisoners of wars. I think there was one or two civilians in there. I'm not completely sure about that, so we would just say that all of them were prisoners of war. But due to the Geneva Convention stating that once someone is taken as a prisoner of war, they are given the same right as a civilian would in terms of capture. This is classed as a war crime because the German and the Italian troops that were captured had given up at that point and were non-combatants, and killing them is, as I said, a war crime. Something similar happened when another U.S. Another U.S. corp was trying to take a airport in Sicily, and during this capture, there was a sniper pinning down the troops that were trying to infiltrate the airport, and one U.S. soldier actually managed to infiltrate into the back line where the sniper was shooting from, and the sniper ran away into a trench of a bunch of civilians and a bunch of troops, which then gave up. They put their hands up and they were like, "Oh, we're captured. This is it." But they were all taken after the battle at the airport ended. They were all taken and were meant to be transferred to a prisoner of war camp, as we mentioned before. But due to the as we said, the soldiers were very stressed. They saw that the supposed sniper that was shooting at them this whole time took down a bunch of their colleagues, and once again, a quite similar thing happened. A machine gun was taken. Sorry, no, I'm thinking of the previous one. The prisoners of war were taken to the head of the corps, and the head of the corps was said to have ordered the soldiers to just kill all of them. So all of them were lined up, execution style. The troops were set in a firing squadron position, and as soon as the German and Italian prisoners saw what was happening, many of them tried to run away, and they were all mowed down. And there was 37 prisoners of wars, as well as civilians, killed. Do you want to expand on this while I have a drink?
Oh, yeah. Have a drink.
Yeah.
You quite need it. There's another misconception going that, just like more in general, just like Calin said, that it was only the Axis because they were seen as the evil people. I mean, they did do the Holocaust. They did cause the Holocaust, which was considered as the biggest war crime ever. But at the same time, don't think that the Allies didn't commit any war crimes. And it's difficult to judge this because when you see your friends dying, when you see your Allied soldiers dying, when you see you know that home, a lot of your friends or even family members have died because of the war, because of the enemies. You want to kill, but you're killing indirectly because you're not exactly killing whoever ordered whatever. At the end of the day, I see every soldier as a soldier, not necessarily as a Nazi or as a Red Army soldier or as an American corp or whatever. Because at the end of the day, I think that the officers that are higher ranked are the ones to blame.
I have some general quotes from the officers to further put this into context. So the soldier who captured the sniper and the troops in the back line was named Private Raymond C. Marlowe, and he went up to his captain, John T. Compton, and said that he got these fellows that were shooting at us while we were getting out from under the artillery fire. And his captain's response to being told that these soldiers were likely shooting at his troops while they were trying to take over the airport was get them shot, which then followed with Compton getting his company in a firing squad position and mowing down the prisoners of war that were supposedly shooting at the troops. This is to put into context that the US was obviously not purely innocent, as any side of a conflict should it is never innocent, because on every side there is going to be bad people, such as this, who decided that even though these people gave up and were technically protected by the Geneva Convention, he still decided that they should be killed, which once again is considered a war crime. We have some messages in the Twitch chat, if you can read them off, Andrei from Cheapy.
Okay, let's see. So, depending, all the soldiers in the concentration camp are guilty as Hitler, or the one that give the order, or the one that gives the order. Well, you see, because they're blaming the Wehrmacht for everything, because obviously at the end of the day, this is what I wanted to talk about, but I think we will leave it for the next topic, and I'll discuss it a bit more in detail. so it's specific to the content. I will respond to those comments.
So
Uh,
we can stay on the topic of Allied war crimes and move on to the rape of Berlin. If you have nothing more to add to the U.S. war crimes in Sicily.
no, we
Okay,
can move on.
I'll change the topic and you can start.
So the first thing that I wanted to say, because we're kind of transitioning from Axis war crimes to Allied war crimes, is that a misconception is that the Nazis, again, Wehrmacht, have raped women in Soviet Russia and the whole of Europe, which is very wrong. Everyone thinks that they rape women, and it is wrong because they think, how can such bad people not rape women, but the Allies did, because the Allies are sent to be like I said, saints. They can't do war crimes, but they did, and it's because they had this specific order where they, like we said before, they were seeing the Jewish race and other races as lower than them. So obviously, you wouldn't do such an action to someone that you see lower. You probably kill them, but not necessarily rape them. And those who did commit, because I'm not saying no one did, but those who did end up committing such an action, they were murdered on the spot. Now, there's a difference between Wehrmacht soldiers committing such crimes and SS soldiers, because SS soldiers, like I said, they're a whole different breed. These are the officers, these are the devils incarnated in real flesh. These are different type of people, so that's why I'm trying to always gesticulate exactly the type of soldier, the type of Nazi that we're talking about. I see a comment from Silent Control. I looked the situation from both sides. Russian army had the most hardships and they raged too much. Yes and no. I mean, try and put yourself in the same shoes. You lose your whole family, you lose absolutely everything. You lose hope, you lose your motherland. I'm not saying it's the right action to take. I'm not saying it's the wrong action to take. But before judging, obviously we can't judge. But before, if you do want to judge, try and put yourself in the same shoes, even though it is difficult without actually living such a thing. Uh, like I said,
Um,
Silent Control, they were banned from doing that. They were banned from raping German women. Some did, and those who did had to pay with death. Now, if we're talking, like I mentioned before, if we're talking about the SS officers, that's a whole different story. But even the SS officers were shot on the spot if caught to have raped a Jewish woman. Now, on the different side, we're talking about Berlin now. So we're going to talk mainly about the Soviet Russians and the Americans, and why not the British as well, who have committed mass rapes. Mass rapes. I mean, once the Russians have entered Berlin, they were unstoppable. They would just either kill, torture, or rape civilians that have been caught. And they wouldn't give much, and just like you said, it is the rage. It is the rage. It is the want for revenge. And they had so much hate in them that they would just destroy anything in their path. And they didn't really care, because the mistake that they did is they saw every civilian, just like any soldier, as if they were the cause of all this destruction, as if they were the cause of the Holocaust, so on and so forth, which is wrong.
I can bring up a picture of the Soviet troops in Berlin. You have the date for this because you sent it to me. So if you can talk about the picture that I'm about to put up, is the two Soviet soldiers with the woman?
Yes. The picture is from 1945. I think it was, they were only 5 miles away from Berlin, if I'm not mistaken. They were very close. I think some of them actually entered Berlin. And in the picture shown, you can see the two officers that are just, they're pretty much about probably to rape the woman. And, they weren't treating her as a civilian. They were treating her as someone who has actually surrendered, someone who has suffered. And you can see the smiles on their faces. So if that smile, trying to pull someone who probably lost their whole family, lost their houses, and you're telling me, the Allies can't commit war crimes, or the Allies. Of course, we're going to make a difference between the Russians, between the British, between the Americans, but at the same time, they're all in the same pot. And most probably, they all had the same hate, but just like Silent Control said, the Soviets were ravagers. Ravagers and savages.
I think the fighting in Berlin was very brutal, just in general. Yeah, go on. Go ahead.
A comment from Silent Control saying, "I wish I presume by that you mean the SSR army could control the situation as sensible as possible." Yeah, again, put yourself in the same shoes. That wouldn't
Mm.
happen. They've lost simply too much to do that. And when you see, because they were fighting with numbers, they weren't fighting with much, uh, armament. They weren't fighting with improved armament comparing to the German army. They were just fighting with numbers, simple as. And they just wanted to finish the war as soon as possible. And I think that's why they were so hesitant in their decisions.
And I think
Please continue.
also that the due to the fighting in Berlin was brutal. This was the last stand of the Germans, and they threw at the Allies everything they had. Children, women, it didn't matter as long as you had two legs, two arms, and could either push a anti-tank gun. If you could hold a gun, you were sent to fight against the oncoming enemy. Obviously, some of the leaders mutinied and then either surrendered themselves to the Allies or just told their troops to just stop listening to the orders that were given by the German High Command. But most of the more fanatic people that were still left in Berlin, because um, I would say that you would have to be a fanatic to end up in this position of defending Berlin, because otherwise, most of the other soldiers who were being pushed back at the end either gave themselves up to the Allies or died along in the while they were being pushed back. So a lot of the soldiers who were left in Berlin were actually fanatics and really believed in Hitler's ideology, and as such fought back fearlessly, which would have led to many of the Soviet troops seeing their friends dying along them and thinking, this is what the Germans, this is as well enforced by propaganda. So they saw all their friends, maybe from they came from the same village, people that they've known from for a lot of time, especially after fighting on the front for so long. Seeing these men die around them, in their head, they're thinking, "This is what the Germans have done to us." It's not specifically this is what those fanatics who followed this ideology did to us, and as such, they wanted to get revenge for the deaths of their friends, and in such a position, logic and humanity usually goes out of the window, and this applies for most wars where somebody is in such a position, which means that in I'm not trying to justify. Obviously, this was obviously done on the other side of the front as well. It's not just the Soviets, but the Soviets are more perpetrated these actions more as compared to the other side, which didn't suffer as many casualties as the Soviets did.
I'm gonna pause you there for a second to read the comments. Chippy said the German soldiers pay for the drinks when they enter in an occupied country pub. See, that's another point. That's another good point that represents how the Germans behave themselves as an army invading a different country, where even though they were invading and they have destroyed quite a bit. In certain places, they were actually behaving themselves well, and this was
No?
not only done because of their simple nature and culture, but also because they wanted to represent that they were the better race, and the hopes that whatever country they invaded, some of the people might come over and join them if they had the Aryan characteristics.
I want to say about the comment about the German soldiers paying at the pub. Um, all of these nice actions that were perpetrated by the Germans were mostly done on the Western Front, while they were occupying the Low Countries and France and other regions of the West, as they wanted to portray themselves to the West as a force of good, which might um, lessen the war support in specifically England, which was the sole bastion that Europe had left on the east, on the west. I mean, holding back against the Nazi push. On the east is another matter. They swept the people as they saw the Slavic people in a completely different light as compared to the people in France. They saw the people of France as a more, although they've been enemies for centuries, they saw them as a worthy adversary. And once they took them over, they treated them in with a much nicer manner as opposed to their treatment of the people of the East, which they just saw as subhuman. So you wouldn't see the Germans paying at any pub in, let's say, Ukraine while they were taking it over, or Belarus, or even Poland.
We have another comment saying, "I remember the story of my grandfather, what the Russian done, comparing with the Germans." Well, you see, this obviously, if you're gonna be told the story from Eastern Europe and gonna be told the story by someone who lived this from Western Europe, you're gonna hear two different opinions, because some people have seen the Germans as more savages like the other countries, and vice versa. Like I said before, it depends on the damage that has been done with the country and also how the war influenced them once Germany invaded a certain country. Because some countries, they just literally went through, they had maybe a line of defense at the border, which they diminished, and then they had the whole country surrender. Some of them actually did fight, but it was obsolete. So there was no chance for them to actually, hold back the German blitzkrieg. Do you
Um,
have anything to add on that comment?
I don't think so. I think it wraps it up perfectly, considering that we've looked at both sides now. We've looked at both the Axis and the Allies, and we've shown that there is
The
no real innocent person in a war.
I just want to say to mention that we might sound a bit inclined more towards the Germans, which we're not. I just want to cut out the misconceptions that the Allies, which again seen as angels, seen as heroes, couldn't been able to do such atrocities or such war crimes, but they could, because at the end of the day, they're still soldiers. It doesn't make a difference which side they fight on. Obviously, you're gonna fight for your own country.
I think a key part of talking about history, as we are doing, is that we look at both sides, because otherwise, if we just talk about the Axis, then we are biased towards the Allied side. If we just talk about the Allied side, we're biased towards the Axis. By talking about both sides, we ensure that we are not biased in either side. We've presented both arguments, and we are letting you come up with a conclusion. The conclusion is pretty obvious, that the Axis was the more well, evil. That's the word I'm thinking of. The more evil participator in this war. But in the end, the other side also did commit crimes, and passing them off as just liberators would be doing the people who died as part of these crimes and injustice.
And if we were to talk about this, this isn't going to be the first war, the first incident where such things happen, where the heroes or the victors, if you may say, have been seen as good people, even though they might have even had, I don't know, used worst weapons or strategies against their enemies. Just again,
Um,
seen like in World War I, where the Germans were seen in a bad image again, once again, because they've been using the mustard gas, which caused very painful infections, and it was a devastating weapon, even though it was used more like a torture weapon, or what's the word I'm looking for? A weapon that would disarm, just like they say, that would
no.
disarm the potential of the soldier to fight, but not necessarily kill them. Just
Although obviously mustard gas was a chemical weapon, it was the both sides. This is quite interesting. Again, something that is about being impartial in history. Although Germany is credited for using mustard gas a lot more than the Allies, both sides ended up using it. Both the Allies and the Germans. When I'm talking about the Allies, I'm referring to France and Britain in this case, and Russia at some points, although they didn't really have the technology to create as much mustard gas.
But then
But
again, no one mentions, the
no.
Allies using mustard
Yeah,
gas.
the Allies used an equal amount of mustard gas as the Germans. It's but obviously as Germany lost, and because we've always had such a bad image of Germany in history until now, it's always pinned to the Germans that, oh look, it was just these men and that used mustard gas, and we always see pictures of Allied soldiers with burn marks from the gas, with their eyes being bloated due to the gas and going blind. And we never see the other side of the war, where German soldiers as well suffered from the same technology that they were sending over.
Isn't it interesting how, in a way, history just keeps on repeating itself? Because if you think about it from a chronological point of view, uh, Germany was, Germans are the ascendants of Romans, right?
The Holy Roman Empire, if we
Yeah, if we are more accurate, and it's just like history repeating itself, because they become big, they take quite a big part, they conquer quite a big part of the world, and then they end up losing. and being seen as the villains.
Um, I the thing is
And you
the
might wanna turn on your lights or something.
yeah I've got the browser open. I'm just editing uh the title of the stream. It was
If you wouldn't be streaming from a computer, I would say you run out of electricity. To
yeah
cut you off.
there we are. The it as always history is impartial, and with as people who were educated more in the West, we will always see the Western side of history rather than the whole history. That's
See, but
why
this is how we need to look at it from a different perspective. Being, us being indoctrinated by different historians from, just like I said, because if you're going to hear a certain history story from the East compared to the West, it's going to be totally different because it's made their specific country, their specific, whoever fought for their country to look good, but not necessarily saying the truth. Just like we mentioned before in World War II, just like with all the different examples, most history books won't mention that the Allies actually used mustard gas.
I think this is seen a lot in especially America, where things like Vietnam or the destruction of the indigenous people of America is not talked about that much. Chippy has just donated a $6.90 to us.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you. But yeah, to get back on what I was saying, thank you again. We the people of America don't see history from such a different light as compared to us. They see that America was the sole force that pushed back the Germans, and um, without America in both World War I and World War II, Europe would have been controlled by what is this another donation? I don't know if this is different because it says anonymous 690. This can't be two donations.
Well, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Then
We can ask whoever
and
sent the
yeah,
donation. Or where. Anyways, thank you.
yeah. Thank you. If that is a different donation again, I'm not sure if our system is just
Maybe our
you know,
system might be just an error from the system. We're still getting used to it. Still
yeah.
getting used to how to figure out.
But
Still me. Chippy said. Thank
oh,
you once
okay.
again, then.
Thank you. I yeah, that threw me off a bit. Yeah. So it's
You see,
in
just pay Calin money, and then he'll just
yeah. No, I'll
spread
shut
the
up.
story around.
Um, in terms of Americans, the fact that they are not taught the because America has such an animosity towards Russia. Um, Americans are told that without them, but in both
The
World War
world
One and
wouldn't
World War Two,
exist.
yeah, the world wouldn't exist. Nothing would have got done. All of us would be speaking German, and all of us would be Nazis. But the truth is, it was in both World War One and World War Two. It was a combined effort of all of the allies on each side that led to the victory. It's not just America coming in all guns blazing like you see in the Hollywood movies. And on the same side, for those born in the East and or more specifically in Russia, it wasn't just the brave Red Army soldiers marching into Berlin. Without each side of the war, each America on the supporting the Allies in the West and Russia providing the manpower on the East, um, the exploits of World War II, more specifically the defeat of Nazi Germany, would have never happened. And and talking about the war being won from just one side is just being very disingenuous to the sacrifices made by the people on the other side.
Because I mean, at the end of the day, you can't compare the losses from the Americans with the losses from the Soviet army.
True, and I think it's a topic that we need to look in more on another podcast, looking at the contribution of each ally in World War Two. But I think that is all we have on war crimes for today.
I just wanted to mention if for the future streams, if you get any ideas or you want us to discuss specific topics, please do email us at historyofyesterday@gmail.com. And for any other questions, for the podcast that have already been discussed.
Yeah. we start the outro now, if you'd like. I don't think we have anything else to.
Let's see. Let's wait to see if there are any more questions pop
Yeah.
up.
Please. If you have any questions or anything else that you want us to discuss in terms of war crimes, now is the time to ask. Write to us on Facebook, Twitch. YouTube has gone down the broadcasting service that we use. No, it's the broadcasting service. I was looking at it and it just kept connecting. It never actually reached a connection with YouTube. So I'm going.
Internet connection good?
No. It's not my internet connection because the Twitch and the Facebook is working fine. So we are sorry if anyone was watching on YouTube and is now having to watch on either Facebook or Twitch.
Just like mentioned before, please bear with us.
Yeah. So it was a good stream. Yeah. Thank you. I'm gonna change the topic.
Thank you for coming, Silent Control, like always. Thank you for the support, and all the rest that have joined us. And I do hope you have rest of us nice Sunday.
Yeah.
Well, whatever time it is in your place, in your country.
For the next podcast, it's probably going to be next week at some point.
We're gonna make a post on Facebook.
Yeah. So
and we're probably gonna create a schedule as well on Twitch.
Yeah. Oh well, we have one last thing, a funny fact from Chippy. Did you know? Oh, I'm expecting more. Sana says I'm expecting more interesting topics. We will provide more interesting topics. And Chippy says in World War II, British soldiers got a ration of 3 sheets of toilet paper a day. Americans got 22. It feels a lot like the pandemic at the beginning. But yeah, with that said, with that fun fact, I think we should leave the stream off there. Thank you for joining us. Look out on Facebook for our announcements for the next stream. And stay safe. Obviously, the pandemic is still going on. And we expect you guys to be here next week or next time we do the podcast. Take care.
Good night.